morning, heart and soul. Good morning to all of you who have assembled here in our wonderful sanctuary. Good morning to our love streamers who are coming through the live stream. And I'm going to address a third member of the triad. Good morning to those of you who are local and also watching via live stream. And I want to invite you, if you're local and you happen to be watching via your smart TV or your cell phone, you're welcome to be here with us in Sanctuary because your love is the answer. We feed off your energy. We feed off all of the energy that comes to us from abroad, in the building, all over the place. We love to see you and we love to meet you as well. So welcome and thank you for being here. I'm very excited this morning to be back again, second week in a row, actually. Reverend Dr. Andriette is out in the field, doing what ministers do when they're out in the field, touching lives, bringing about healing, spreading a healing message. And I'm grateful in particular to be here today because I had a realization yesterday. I hadn't actually thought of it, nor do I typically mark this day kind of like in my memory. But I was actually here part of yesterday, and it occurred to me, well, today's the 3rd, April 3rd. Why does April 3rd stick in my mind? And then it hit me. I'm sorry, August. Wow, it's August 3rd. Thank you. I knew it began with an A. Give me some credit. August 3rd, and it occurred to me that it was 15 years ago to the day on August 3rd that I became a minister. It's hard to believe. It doesn't seem like that much time has passed. And I remember the day very well because in order to become a minister, as Reverend Sonia knows, you have to pass an oral panel. You have to sort of sit through an interrogatory, and it's very loving also, a panel of ministers who are asking you, like, what is it that you want to bring in the world? What is the healing that you portend to be? And then after hearing your responses to their various questions, they make a decision, and that decision is whether or not you'll be licensed as a minister. And when they came back in the room and told me, yep, the answer is yes, we were in Asilomar. That's where we were doing it back in those days. And I came out of the building and made my way to the meadow. The meadow is where people are assembled to kind of welcome the new ministers as they become licensed. So you walk through this amazing, it's an archway festooned with flowers and ribbons and all kinds of stuff. And you walk through there, and waiting for you in the meadow are like the dozens of people who've shown up just for you to congratulate you, and standing in front of all those people is your minister. That's right. Reverend Dr. Andriette was the first person to embrace me, physically embrace me as a minister. 15 years ago yesterday. I am so grateful. Who knew it was going to lead to all of this? I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for all that we're doing at Heart and Soul Center of Light. I also had the privilege of helping to co-facilitate our last summer school session on Wednesday, in which we're doing, as you saw, a deep dive into fear, trying to discern whether fear is our opportunity to forget everything and run, or is it our opportunity for something else, to remember, to rethink, about what is really going on. Now, I'm not here to teach summer school and talk about fear, but I want to talk about a relative of fear, one that isn't lifted up in our text for summer school in so many words. But the relative I want to lift up is confusion. Confusion is a relative of fear. It's kind of a precursor to fear in one way or another. And, you know, it makes me realize that of all the animals in the animal kingdom, all the organisms that occupy this planet, human beings are unlike any of the others. We're unlike any other animal in that we're the only organism that requires, or think we require, extreme predictability for our gracious living. We need to know in advance everything that might affect what we need to have in the world, and we need to know it up front, and we need to know the probability of all possible outcomes. Could you imagine if other animals operated like that? I mean, think about the way that honeybees respond to the world. A honeybee gets up in the morning and leaves the hive, makes its way to, I don't know, flowers, clover, lavender, whatever, collects the pollen, collects the nectar, as much as it can carry from however far away it is, and then find their way back all the way to the hive, distribute the goods for the production of honey. A honeybee doesn't start the day with, I sure hope there's some clover out there. Well, what if the lavender's all dried up? What if there was, like I smelled smoke, there might have been a fire in the apple orchard and the blossoms that I usually go to in the apple tree. Animals have the good sense not to worry about their provision, about that fulfills their ability to not only have this day their daily bread, but to continue to propagate and expand and make their contribution in this thing called life on earth. Human beings, not so much. Human beings, well, there was a human being about 2,000 years ago that came along and tried to explain to some people that were showing up as his disciples. Of course, I'm talking about Yeshua, whom the world came to call Jesus. And in Matthew 6, 25, 27, I'm going to ask for that slide. It's spelled out. When Yeshua is telling his disciples, y'all stop worrying. Stop being afraid. Stop worrying about where is the food going to come from? Where is the clothing going to come from? Who's going to take care of us? It's not like, we work for the temple. We're just itinerant ministers and trying to spread the word. How are we going to make a living? And Yeshua points to the animal kingdom. He says, look at the birds of the air. They don't gather anything. They don't sow anything. They don't store anything in barns and yet there is a principle in life itself. God, the Father, who feeds them, who takes care of them, giving them everything they need, including wings and air to flap against. making them creatures of the air. Are you not as valuable as a sparrow? Now this teaching seems like it would last, and it has lasted. All of us are familiar with that bit of scripture. But do we remember it in moments of confusion? We, in fact, I think, not only rely on predictability to a reasonable extent, we take predictability to an extreme. We begin our day and continue our day with countless questions, attempting to cover all the bases, to cover all the probabilities for whatever we were going to be up to that day. We ask a lot of questions. We could show that slide too. What kind of questions do we ask? This is just a sampling. Starting with something as mundane as, what's the weather going to be like? Now, this is where I get to tell on myself. I have Amazon Alexa. So, like there's this device in my bedroom that I can talk to, and a woman's voice talks back to me. And I say the first thing in the morning, sometimes I haven't even opened my eyes. I say, Alexa, what is the weather today? And she tells me. Now, it's not like the weather systems here in the greater Bay Area are so wildly divergent from day to day that I couldn't kind of guess what the weather's going to be like. Okay, so let's see. Cloudy or foggy until about 1 o'clock. Sun breaks through. Temperature between 65 and 70. And then mid-50s at night. That's our season. That's our whole description. But every morning I ask Alexa just to cover my bases, just to make sure, just so I have predictability, so she can tell me that 1% of the time that it might rain during the month of July or August. It is amazing how we ask these questions. Will I be successful? Am I going to have everything that I need in this day to have the outcomes that I want and the successes that I want? Who's going to lose this day? Am I going to be one of the losers? Am I going to be anywhere near the losers? Am I going to be associated with people who lose? Am I going to be safe? There's a lot of violence in the world. Should I go down this street or that street? Should I avoid this area? Should I speak to people I do not know? How can I be safe? We're asking these questions, and as we ask questions, the questions multiply in any of these areas. Once again, this is a small sampling. What are the odds? What are the odds for anything that I want? What are the odds for the things that I don't want? What are the odds that the bad stuff, the unwanted stuff is going to happen? Despite all the prayer that I do, despite all that I say I believe, I need answers. I need assurances. I need to know the odds. How much is it going to cost? Deep dive in my mind related to, can I afford it? Do I have enough? Is there enough abundance? Is there enough supply in my life? Oh, that I've forgotten how the sparrows are supported, how the birds are supported, how the lilies of the field neither toil nor spin, and they're supported. What do they think of me? And my mind goes into all of these possible ways that people can be thinking of me. Some people can be thinking of me as this perfect picture of a minister. Some people can be thinking of me as a guy who talks too much. Some people can be thinking of me as a man who makes mistakes and has failures. Some people see me in a different light that I have no idea what it is, but I want to know. I want to prepare myself. So when I engage with people, I'm immediately sizing them up. How are you looking at me? Because I'm looking at you too. Will I stay alive? It's an excellent question. It's an existential question. It's a question that all of us are concerned with because we are all here for a reason and we all strive to remain having this physical experience. And yet, somebody like Dr. Joe and Sarah could tell us one way to kind of stay here or increase that probability is to eat food that will support you rather than kill you. Will I be accepted? Will I be accepted for who I am and how I show up and how I be? Am I projecting the right degrees of whatever it is that makes me successful to whoever they are? And who's going to win? Am I going to be a winner? Or am I going to be among them losers? And if I win, how much am I going to win? At what cost am I going to win? Do you see how in our drive for predictability in our outcomes, the thing begins to spiral out of control? We begin to become obsessed, mostly subconsciously, in all of these ways of questioning whether or not we're going to be all right. Will I be loved? Will I be cared for? Will I be appreciated? What are the implications for anything that I want to do? Our questions are so variable that we can't answer them. I don't know the answer to any of these questions, and this is the short sample. The short sample of hundreds, if not thousands, of questions that flow through the mind every single day, whether we're aware of it or not. We are amazing processing machines. We're processing all of these queries that are going through our CPU, so to speak. So what we do in order to get answers, in order to have the predictability that we crave, is that we reach out to external sources. Who are those external sources? Give me a click and let's see. Oh, those external sources come from everywhere. The 24-hour cable news universe is going to tell us all the information we need to know. Everything we need to know about what's going on is going to tell us how to think, who to like, who to hate, how to be. And if you don't like this particular channel of cable news, you can watch another channel of cable news that's giving a completely different picture of what you need to know. So now we've got answers, but we've got such a multiplicity of answers, and the answers are so diverse. It's like, well, okay, so what's the source of truth here exactly? Our relatives are only too eager to help us as a source of information because they love us and they want to help move us in the right direction, inspire us to make right choices. They give us advice, sometimes lovingly, sometimes not. Our friends, much the same, will tell us, this is what's really going on, Reverend Angelo. This is what's really happening, so you need to watch out over here, and you need to be careful of that, and by all means, here's a hot tip. Do this thing, and you can't fail. Banks, the source of information whose existence depends on telling you whether you are worthy to have prosperity and abundance. Well, let me take a look there. Well, you are a 7 out of 10 in your credits. I have no idea what that means. And neither do most of us. But somebody has set up this arbitrary scale that says, not you. You are credit worthy, you are a credit roach. And by the way, that is a real terminology in finance, a credit roach. They don't say it to you while you're in the office or at the bank asking for the loan. It's after you leave that they say, why do I get all the roaches? It actually works like that. I used to work at a bank. Employers are only too happy to give you all the information you want to know, to answer your questions, to tell you everything you need to do to be in service to them. I can't take refuge, the clergy. We are founts of information, spiritual information, and yet there is this religion and this other religion over here and this denomination and that denomination. There are different schools of thought and philosophy, and before you know it, I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and I met a guy. I was introduced to him. We just started, talking. He said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a minister." And that's when it started. Explain to me the literal interpretation of this verse in the Bible. And I'm like, I can't. But that's what many of us have become accustomed to wanting from clergy. Give me predictability by proving it out in the literal translation. And who can do that? I'm glad that I don't do that. Governmental agencies, yes, they exist to tell you all the information they want you to know. Your lovers between sighs and whispers is going to tell you information. Answer those questions. Your enemies, they got information they want you to know about them, how powerful they are, how you need to watch out. And you're craving information about your enemies, just like you're craving information from all of these sources. Because remember, that little processing unit that you call a brain is constantly trying to figure it out, constantly trying to land at where am I going to be safe, where's it all going to be okay. Social media influencers are going to tell you how to make $1 million in 10 minutes. Las Vegas, one of the largest processing centers of raw data in the world. Las Vegas will tell you predictable data about anything, not just sports, not just, the progressive slots, but about anything that you would care to wager, because you can wager on anything in Las Vegas. And they have supercomputers running round the clock that do nothing but churn information to answer your questions, to give you greater predictability. Just make sure that you stay at this hotel and have this buffet. Politicians going to answer their questions, or going to answer your questions in the way that suits them. Do you see the way that this is going? That our drive for predictability, our questions are so variable that they become unanswerable. They become nothing but confusing. All of this information is confusing. So let's talk about, finally, what confusion is. I have already told you that confusion is a precursor to fear. When I say precursor, I mean like it comes first. It's not exactly like a parent of fear, but I'm going to call it like it's an uncle. It's that crazy uncle that lives in the attic and doesn't know what to do or what to say at any time, is liable to do or say anything. So you try to keep him like out of public view. You try to keep your confusion out of public view. And confusion happens often when there are multiple sources of information that vary and conflict. I just lifted all of that up. You're getting information from all over the place. What is true? What's the source or sources, and how do you evaluate what to believe? And by the way, there's confusion that can come through too much information, and there's also confusion that happens when we have no information at all. And that's allowable. That's when we get to ask a question, but it's all about who you ask. Once again, what is your source? Mentally, confusion is when you don't know what to know. I don't know what to know about this. I don't know what to know about how to be safe, how to be abundant. I don't know what to know about whether I'm loved and all of the others, named and unnamed. But spiritually, confusion is something else. Spiritually, confusion is a point of disconnection between what you know about God and who you be. I should have had that lit like in red or something. Confusion is a point of disconnection, dismemberment between what you know about God and who you are in relationship to that infinite divine. Does that make sense? See, once again, as a minister, I find myself in this strange position that ministers are always in, needing to explain principles that are formless, invisible, and intangible, and try to paint a picture that we can appropriate with, like our five senses. So I'm gonna take a stab at it this way. I'm gonna tell a story about confusion that we can all relate to because it's somebody that we can relate to. I'm going to tell a story about none other than the real GOAT, Miss Simone Biles. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She toting that gold. She is toting that gold. They tell me she got so much gold now that she has to have an armored car just to leave the arena and get to the athletes' village. This woman is amazing. We have watched her literally transform the entire sport of gymnastics. There's like pre-Simone Biles gymnastics, which was something else, and it was okay to watch. And then there's Simone Biles gymnastics, which we have to keep like going back and looking at it again to make, did I really see that? What kind of move was that? This woman is 4'10" tall. They measure her in the air at 12 feet. They're NBA players, they can't do that. This is a woman whose techniques and maneuvers are so unique, so ingeniously contrived, that they're all named after her. Pretty soon they're just going to stop calling it gymnastics and just calling it the Simone game. Anyway, Simone Biles burst on the scene. I think it was in the Rio de Janeiro Games in 2016. And back then, well, she was a little 19-year-old. She's 27 now. And one of the youngest members of the team. We had no idea what she was going to be bringing. In that Olympics, she came home with all the gold. And so we couldn't wait for Tokyo in 2020. And in 2020, Simone came on. We're like, yay, Simone, you're going to get more gold. And then something happened. Simone got something. She experienced something called the Twisties. It has a clinical name. That clinical name is focal dystonia. It is not unknown to the world of sports, but Simone brought it to us front and center. She describes it as a loss of spatial awareness. It's this thing of while she's in the air, so she's launched off the balance beam or she's launched in a floor exercise, in the air, she's got to be able to tell exactly where her body is in relation to the ground. And in this loss of spatial awareness and knowing where her body was, she couldn't safely execute routines. And we began to see this. We began to see Simone falling. And we were watching like, what is that? What's going on? And we began, for those of us who love Simone Biles, to like be scared. Like nobody wants to see Simone Biles get hurt. It's dangerous, this thing called the twisties. Simone told us that it can result in a serious injury to a gymnast because they're unable to land safely. It's hazardous. And so she did the only thing she could do. She withdrew herself from the competition in Tokyo. She withdrew herself because she needed to find out, like, what is this thing that has upended something that I do naturally, that I've been doing since I'm 3 or 4 years old? Springing over the furniture in my mother's house. I mean, I know how to do this. What's wrong? She identified, ultimately, after getting a lot of help over the past 4 years, from doctors through therapy and otherwise, that what she was dealing with was also a mental block. That's part of the twisties. Simone noted that the twisties are a mental block that prevents gymnasts from performing their skills, the skills that they've done 1,000 times. And these blocks occur without warning. It's something that's not easily controlled. I need us to mentally stick a pin in this idea of mental blocks, because don't think I just came here to talk about Simone. I know we're talking about confusion. Mental block is a confusion. I mentioned that, I mean, it's easy because Simone is, she has such notoriety right now to think that she is the only one who has experienced the twisties. It's not so. It's actually been well known for a while. There is another name in other sports. A common name is the yips. Yips, Y-I-P-S. Baseball players complain about the yips. Golfers complain about the yips. In fact, in the 60s, late 60s to early 70s, there was a baseball player. He played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. His name was Steve Blass. And he was a pitcher, a winning pitcher. About 1973, he lost the ability to pitch. Didn't mean he couldn't throw the ball. He just couldn't get it over the plate. And in one season, he walked 84 batters in 88 innings. That's a record that hasn't been equaled since, and it caused him to retire from baseball. But it was so stunning to the sports world and to the medical world. There wasn't like a name for it yet. Dystonia, whatever I called it, that didn't exist. They called it the Steve Blass disease. What a thing to be remembered. Tiger Woods, the most dominant golfer in the world at one point, all of a sudden can barely get the ball down the fairway, let alone on the green. The yips, the twisties, the whatever you want to call it, the mental block that keeps you from performing certain physical functions But what about spiritual functions? What about the spiritual twisties? I want to talk about that. We said that, Simone described the physical twisties as being a loss of spatial awareness. Well, the spiritual twisties is a loss of spiritual awareness. It's when you forget that there is one life, that God is the source of all things. Then there is nothing else. It's when you also forget that you are unified with this I am presence. God and I are one. When you forget that God is and that you are one with God, it results in a sense of separation. Well, that there's God, yeah, I believe that. And there's something else. There's what the bankers told me. I'm a credit roach. There's this other thing where people have said that, they don't like me, or I talk too much, or I look too much, or I'm too gay, I'm too straight, whatever it is. There's God and otherness when we're in the spiritual twisties. The confusion that begins to swim around in our mind that makes us lose our spiritual positioning, not in midair, but in mid-life experience. And just like the twisties that Simone Biles experienced are dangerous, the spiritual twisties are dangerous as well. They're dangerous in that they will limit your potential. Forgetting that God is and who you are in relation to God, you are a divine son, daughter of God. Forgetting that shrinks you down. It helps there be more of a manifestation of negative experiences. Now, why would I be talking about manifesting negative experiences? Because if you believe there is God and something else, there's God and these negative experiences that you are scared of, the universe says yes to that which you place your attention on. If you place your attention on the fear, on the thing that you most don't want to experience, the universe doesn't know what I don't. It doesn't know what do not means. The universe only operates in the affirmative. So when you go, bankruptcy, 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 I don't want bankruptcy, the universe goes, bankruptcy, check, you got it. Because the universe only says yes. You're putting your attention on bankruptcy, that must be what you want, I'm with you. It's dangerous. It reduces our ability to co-create what we want with God. Oh, yes, that's the reason why we are one with God. We're not here, as I explained last week, stumbling in to this experience with nothing to do. We are on assignment. We have come here to be the hands of God, the feet of God, the eyes of God, the healing of God here and now. And we co-create so that we can be and do all that we have come here to be, do, and have. But the spiritual twisties, once you've lost that spiritual awareness, it becomes really hard to co-create the things you want. And there's an adverse impact on relationships. Why? Because those that you're having relationships with, whether they're your intimate relationships of spouse or family, friends, extends to your coworkers, extends to the people you meet on the street. Because suddenly you're not seeing that person as a reflection of God standing before you. You're seeing them as a manifestation of something other than God. They and you, in your mind, at least subconsciously, are at the effect of some otherness that can befall us. there's a mental block. That happens in twisties. That's why I told you in Spiritual Twisty to put a pin in this idea of mental blocks, because this is a state of mind where our negative thoughts, our negative belief, our negative attitudes prevent us from experiencing the desired flow of good. We always want to be in the flow of good. Good doesn't arrive in neat, discrete packages. Goodness is a divine flow that is forever flowing from God. You really can't stop the divine flow except you make the portal that it moves through, meaning you, smaller and smaller. Spirit is always going to be trying to deliver. Your job is not to shut down. That's what a mental block does. A mental block shuts you down. It prevents you from knowing what you know. You know that God is, and you know that God and you are one. Don't get spiritually blocked. So, you know what I'm saying. The spiritual twisties are what? I thought I'd put the answer in there just in case. Yeah, I'm talking about confusion today. The spiritual twisties are confusion, but the real question is, like, okay, so where does confusion come from? Well, glad you asked. There is Ernest Holmes, who had an opinion, and Ernest Holmes didn't mince words. He was very direct. And he spells it out right here. Straight, no chaser. He says, life is a mirror reflecting your images of thought. Hear that. Life is a mirror that reflects what you've been thinking about. And if you see confusion in this mirror, don't blame the law of reflection. That's just the way light works. Don't even bother to blame yourself, he says, but just be willing to acknowledge that this confusion must be a reflection of your own consciousness. Where does confusion come from? Ernest just told you. It comes from us. It's not as if we are these blameless people walking down the street of life and we pass a dark alley and get jumped by confusion. It's not happening like that. We are not victims in the process. We are simulators of the process. We are creators of confusion, beginning with ourselves. Now, are there people who are purveyors of confusion, who want to put confusing? Yes, there's all of that. And I'm not talking about people who intentionally cause harm by fomenting confusion all over the place. I'm talking about our ability to know where confusion comes from, that it comes from us, and that it really has no reality. Not any real. See, confusion is not a thing in and of itself. Confusion exists as a condition, but not a reality. The condition is that condition of being mentally blocked. The condition is the condition of having the spiritual twisties. It's a mirage in your own consciousness, a fanciful thing that you think that you see, but it's not there. And Ernest Holmes offers an idea. He says, if confusion comes, take your intellect and dive deep into your pool of peace. Now, I'm grateful to see the level of agreement around that, but what is your pool of peace? There are some who may not know. They're like, what pool? I don't have a pool of peace. Where do you get a peace pool at anyway? Through an act of faith, he says you got to open your eyes and you will see that there is no confusion, because peace comes from a sense of union with the whole, union with the divine, union with God, and confusion comes from a sense of separation from God. But this idea of taking your intellect, that red hot processing center between your ears, that's constantly generating all of these questions, all this need for predictability, take that and immerse it into your pool of peace. You're going to have to find a way through your meditation practice, through your willingness and ability to write affirmations, to recite mantras that support you in knowing the truth. I knew a couple one time, and their daughter, when she was an infant, was going through a time, it's common for younger children, to go through a period where they won't sleep. They wake up at 2:45 and they're ready to play. They're ready to be up and at 'em. It's more than feeding. It's more than just needing to be changed. It's like, I'm up now and I want to stay up. And what this, the mother told me that she learned to do, and I don't know where she got this idea. Maybe a lot of mothers do it. She bundled up her daughter and take her to the car and put her in the car seat and drive around the block a couple of times. And by the time she drove around the block, the child was asleep. For the child, there's nothing magical about a car, right? But the motion, the engine noise, the company, whatever it was the pool of peace that allowed that child to find their way back to sleep, to disperse that energy. You will need to find your pool of peace to gently immerse yourself into when you are feeling confused. The difference between peace and confusion is that peace is a spiritual reality. 1 Corinthians spells it out for us right here. Tells us that God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. I'm always fascinated by astrophysicists that I encounter, on television or on the internet, and they say that the universe that we know was born out of chaos. And I'm like, who told you that? The universe was born out of divine order. The universe exists in divine order. There's no chaos. God didn't say, well, let me just unleash all the craziness right now and call it a universe. God said, let there be light. And the light had to do with more than just being able to see in supposed darkness. It had to do with order. It had to do with level of complexities that are impossible for us to know anything about. It had to do with systems within systems within systems, all operating perfectly all of the time to sustain all of this. God is that, you are that, I am that, and that is all there is. That's order. That's not happenstance. So I've told you about confusion, but what about peace? Peace is the antidote to confusion, but peace really has nothing to do about the absence of external noise. My mother used to love peace and quiet. But it's not about the absence of external noise. The spiritual peace that I'm talking about has everything to do with the absence of internal noise. That press that you have for answers and needing to know what's going to happen next is that internal noise. Peace is what happens when you remember that you and God, or that God is unlimited, divine, creative power, intelligent, and that you're one with God. Peace happens in the middle, try it. The next time you find yourself kind of like agitated, just tell yourself, God and I are what? There is God. God is capable of all things, and God and I are one. And see if something doesn't change right in the center of your being. That's peace. That's the shift that happens in you. Mentally, peace is triggered the instant that you recall that confusion has no power, but God as you has all the power. Spiritually, peace resides as power at the center of your being. And the great thing is that you can call peace into action at any time. You don't need special permission. You don't need to go through a special process. It's not like trying to put a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle together where all the pieces are the exact same color. You're going, okay, well, first I got to find the corners, and then the straight edge. No, it's none of that. You don't need to do that, but there is a practice, once again, that Ernest Holmes describes for finding the healing power of peace. He says, you will actually notice if you follow a few simple rules and methods that when thoughts of confusion pop up and persist in coming to the surface, statements of peace will neutralize those thoughts. You're going to have to arrive at peace of mind. It is the only basis of peace that you can persist with absolute certainty, he says. He says, peace alone gives poise. What is poise? Spiritual poise is standing unperturbed. Spiritual poise is like Simone Biles doing that dismount off the balance beam and sticking it, somebody said, like a toothpick in a club sandwich. That's poise. Spiritual poise is when you know and know that God is. There is that within you. It is the intuitive faculty which already knows that you're one with good. You don't have to convince God. You have to convince yourself. You have to convince this conscious thing that's going on between your ears. Because the mind that is outside of you is constantly telling you, you are my divine beloved. Anything you want is yours. You must listen to this intuition because it is the voice of God in you. So I'm needing to bring this to a close, but I've been a little Ernest Holmes heavy today, but he speaks such truth on this subject. He tells us how to shift from confusion to peace. He basically says you have to let go of the lesser, that with what you're worried about, that which you need such certainty about, that which you need so much predictability about, so you can take hold of the greater, the awareness that God is. He says, only as you let go of confusion can you entertain peace. I'm lifting up just the last line here because you can read the rest. If you lose a sense of confusion, you will be at peace. It's not something that you have to chase after and go find. It's not like on a special shelf or in the closet. It's in you. Peace is in you all the time. You just have to move the other clutter out of the way in order to see it, to experience it. I'm going to give you a couple of tools. Easy tools for practicing peace daily, to keep confusion, to banish it as the no-thingness that it is. You can do a simple affirmation that says, I turn from any thought of confusion to a consciousness of peace. If you say that to yourself, it'll have a way of bringing you back. For your meditation, think of a mantra. I am submerged in peace. I am immersed in peace. There is nothing but peace. Peace, deep, calm, undisturbed. Words like this will sustain you. It does something to your subconscious where you don't have to be like convicted. You're already convinced. So let's try something right now to set us up for moving forward in peace. We're going to do a declaration together. Wherever you may be, whether you're watching the live stream or watching later or here with us today, why don't you join me by reciting this declaration? So together, there is no confusion in spirit. Therefore, there is no confusion in my mind. There is one divine circulation flowing through me, which is never inhibited, retarded, or congested. This circulation is free, complete, and perfect, automatically eliminating anything that does not belong to pure spirit. I turn from any thought of confusion to a consciousness of peace, and so it is. Peace be with you.